You know that old line, no one is born evil? Well, Pedrito Masangkay might just be the dark proof of that. In this 1994 action thriller, we're introduced to a man who doesn't just fight for survival. He carves his myth out of violence, grief, and injustice. On the surface, Pedrito Masangkay is a pulpy revenge flick, filled with bullets, betrayal, and bodies. But underneath all the cinematic gunfire is a chilling portrait of what happens when a man is cornered by poverty, systemic failure, and personal tragedy. This is not just a story of one man's descent into violence. It's a grim mirror, one that reflects how society, through neglect and cruelty, can create the very monsters it fears. So in this video, let's break down how Pedrito Masangkay transforms from victim to vigilante. What made him this way? Was he a product of his choices, or was the world always ready to make him snap? Let's talk about it. Pedrito Masangkay opens not with action but with tension. Quiet, simmering resentment between Pedrito and the family of his lover, Jenny. Jenny's father, Jose, deeply disapproves of their relationship. That resentment boils over into violence. Pedrito brutally murders Jose and his entire family. The next day, their body parts are found washed up along the shoreline. A grotesque mystery that launches a manhunt. Weeks later, Police Captain Briones and his team begin their investigation. Their only real lead? The seaside eatery once owned by Jose. It is now being managed by Pedrito himself, who works alongside co-workers Toto and Charing. Pedrito tells anyone who asks that the family is on vacation. But the cracks begin to show. Toto discovers Pedrito's disturbing obsession with Jenny and starts gossiping behind his back. That's enough for Pedrito to snap again. Toto becomes his next victim. When Charing later finds Toto's bloodstained clothes in the kitchen, she realizes the horrifying truth. She, too, becomes a target. Pedrito's crimes are finally interrupted when Briones catches him red-handed while disposing of Charing's body. He is arrested and examined by a psychiatrist who uncovers a dark history. Pedrito has schizophrenia, inherited from his mother, and a violent past. He had attempted to kill his uncle years before. After a failed suicide attempt in custody, Pedrito is hospitalized and finally opens up. With the psychiatrist's help, he confesses everything: the murders, the cover-up, and worst of all, the cannibalistic truth. The meat served at the eatery was from the victims he killed, his gruesome way of leaving no trace. As the police reel from this revelation, Pedrito uses the chaos to escape the hospital. But the escape is short-lived. He is cornered by authorities in the hospital courtyard, and in a final desperate moment, faces his fate, ending with an unresolved, bitter parting from Jenny, the woman he claimed to love. In Pedrito Masangkay, the terror is not just in the bloodshed. It's in the quiet failures of a society that let a man fall through the cracks. This is not just the story of a murderer. It's the story of a boy who became invisible to the people around him, until he became a monster they could not ignore. From the start, the film subtly builds a picture of neglect and alienation. Pedrito is not just mentally ill. He is untreated, unacknowledged, and unloved. The schizophrenia he inherits is a biological condition, but it's made lethal by social abandonment. Instead of receiving help, Pedrito is left to work quietly in the same eatery where his crimes took place, unmonitored, unspoken of, and unnoticed. When Jenny's family mocks and ostracizes him, the film presents a chilling truth. Our cruelty has consequences. Pedrito's violence isn't justified, but it's not without context. The murder of Jenny's family is shocking, but it stems from a long buildup of emotional injury, humiliation, and rejection. The monster we see is one cultivated by environment, not just biology. The film also explores a social tendency to ignore red flags. And not just the authorities. Charing suspects something is off, but doesn't act until it's too late. The community continues eating food that comes from missing people. There's a deep metaphor here. People are willing to consume violence as long as it's served clean and quiet. Even the revelation of Pedrito's crimes is met not with institutional accountability, but revulsion and disgust. The community reacts not by questioning how it allowed this to happen, but by recoiling from the consequences. Pedrito escapes, not just physically, but symbolically. He slips through society's fingers just like he slipped through its care. At its core, Pedrito Masangkay is about responsibility, not just his, but ours as well. The system failed. The people around him failed. The monster didn't just wake up one day and started killing. He was shaped by trauma, by indifference, and by the silent permission of a society that didn't want to see what was happening until it was too late. There's a roughness to Pedrito Masangkay, not just in its storytelling, but in the way it is shot. This isn't a polished psychological thriller. It looks raw, sometimes even gritty, but that visual texture adds to the film's unsettling atmosphere. The camera often lingers uncomfortably, especially during moments when Pedrito is alone or silently observing. There's a stillness to these shots, almost like we're watching him the way he watches others. It's voyeuristic, creepy, and intentional. It puts us in the mindset of a man who's not reacting to the world so much as studying it, waiting for it to turn against him. Lighting plays a crucial role too. Many scenes are dimly lit or uses harsh and natural lighting to heighten the realism. There's no dramatic spotlight on the violence, no stylized gore. Matter of fact, the killings are quiet, which makes them feel even more disturbing. The film avoids jump scares or suspenseful music cues. Instead, it leans into silence, and silence in this movie is unnerving. Director Francis Posadas opts for a restrained visual style. No flashy cuts or action-driven sequences. Everything is slow, deliberate, and almost procedural. It reflects how the story unfolds, not as a whodunit, but a how did we get here? The horror builds gradually, and when it peaks, it doesn't feel cinematic. It feels like something that could happen, something that has happened. And then there's the final sequence, the escape, the confrontation, the hospital. Even here, the movie doesn't go for spectacle. It goes for grief, for helplessness, for that gnawing feeling that whatever we just witnessed isn't over. Because the problem wasn't Pedrito alone. It was everything that made him invisible. Pedrito Masangkay isn't just a portrait of a killer. It's a cautionary tale about silence, about stigma, and about what happens when society looks the other way until it's too late. Yes, Pedrito is the one who committed the crimes, but the film quietly points the finger at everything around him that allowed those crimes to take root. There's a reason this movie sticks with you. It doesn't glorify violence. It doesn't ask you to sympathize with the murderer, but it does ask you to sit in the discomfort of recognizing where it all started. In childhood trauma, untreated mental illness, and a community that either ignored the signs or simply didn't know what to look for. This is what makes the final image so haunting. Pedrito is not just being chased by cops. He's being chased by the consequences of a society that failed him and everyone he hurt. His story may be fictional, but the conditions that shaped him, those are all too real. In today's true crime-obsessed culture, it's easy to sensationalize people like Pedrito Masangkay. But this film, in all its roughness, makes a quieter and far more terrifying point. Sometimes, the monster doesn't crawl out of the shadows. Sometimes, we create him in broad daylight and don't even notice until the bodies surface.